Good morning and welcome to my kitchen garden, Sara's kitchen garden, Skillnadens trädgård in Sweden. It is Sunday morning, it's very foggy and it has been even more fog outside earlier this morning. It's getting a bit clearer, but it's such a nice day. It's all very quiet, it's not much wind at all. And I can hear the children playing indoors. And I am Sara, and this is my kitchen garden that I grow in south parts of Sweden. And this is also the place for me to create content for my two garden blogs at sarabäckmo.se and sarabäckmo.com. So I run one Swedish blog and one English blog. Hi everyone, nice to see you stopping by for this last live stream for this week. And you who have followed all week through, you know that I have been doing one live stream. Hello Alina, Benny, all garden friends from all over the world. It's so nice, and it's nice to be reminded, I think, what gardening is about. It's like one worldwide community, really, where we have sort of the same joy and we share the same struggle and the same love for gardening. And this is shown to me while doing this. I was thinking maybe I should give an explanation, mostly to my Swedish and Norwegian readers, why I do this on my English channel instead of my Swedish channels. And the fact is that I am very fortunate. I can actually live on the work my garden on the work with my garden in social media, writing books, writing this blog, and doing live videos and other videos for my YouTube channel. And I am on my way in a couple of hours to a small city to have a public speech about my winter gardening, and will be about 100 people there. So I'm very fortunate doing this. And in some time, some seasons are better in a way for my work. Like spring is the all-time high, and summertime as well. Many people read the blog. And if you want numbers, I can tell you that it could be like 20,000 readers or page views each day. And now in fall, in traditional way, we don't garden the same way. And you can see that also in the numbers, in the statistics for the blog, for example. So I have tried to keep myself going, to let me do some other things while there are not so many readers on the Swedish blog, for example. And in this case, I really enjoy to try new things. And for me, doing this, to get to know gardeners in other parts of the world and to practice my English, and to it's great fun. So it gives me a lot of energy doing this. And then I will go back to work with my Swedish blog for tomorrow, writing, and I'll be so happy that I have had not a break, but doing another thing. So I'm very happy that you, some of you from Sweden, come with me to this project and to follow and see my garden in English. It's been such a nice week, really nice. But you should know also that I have taken hundreds and hundreds of photos this week. And preparing new exciting blog posts about sea kale and about my compost and about lots of things. And I'm longing to share that with you now. And of course you will read about that in the English blog too. As soon as Lovisa, she is our team member translating blog posts and articles and videos for us, have made her job. And you may not know about this in following from other countries, but this is quite a big a business in Sweden. We are I think we are 7 people working with content to and from this garden each month. So it's all from like photos and recipes and videos and managing the web page and all the social media accounts. So it's 7 people. I'm living the dream, really. Today I have collected some questions that you have sent me during this week in the live stream, both from Sweden and from Denmark and Norway and I think United States and other countries as well. So this is my point of view. I mean, this is what I share in my channels or platforms are my way of gardening, and you should also carry with you that there are plenty of things to do, ways to do things at. I mean, you could compost in like different ways and still get a good result. So, but you ask me, and then I will answer the way I see it. All right. So Eva Madeleine, Denmark, asked me if I read the question. Do you have any medicinal herbs in your garden except the dandelions? I don't grow many herbs really, and that is basically because right now I don't know how to take care of them and how to use them in a good way so that it makes me feel like it's worth the effort. When I was a child, my mother, she created a few like herb gardens where I am grown up. So I have been following that kind of work, and I really enjoy herbs. And I do have a plan. I would like to create a kitchen garden here in my garden together with my mother in a couple of years before she gets too old. But until then I grow like mint and oregano and sage and lemon balm and other, very common herbs for our cooking, but not in another way. And it's like calendula and other flowers and stuff like that, but not for a medicinal purpose really, or not at all actually. Benny writes me, hello Annika, nice to see you. Benny writes me, I have a lot of Calabrese, it's like broccoli, standing, who is not ready for harvesting yet. Would you dig it up and move it into a greenhouse or just leave it outside in the ground with cover? Can it grow further in the spring? And I have tried doing this, and my experience is that like broccoli, Calabrese are quite sensitive, so it will not stand the cold. Behind me, for example, you can see this lovely broccoli across that I have shown you between the black kale and broccoli, and it will freeze, and it will freeze even though it's in my polytunnel. So my hope for like broccoli is not that good really. So if I were you, I would just I would try to eat it before cold comes. And I know some years I have had like broccoli for to harvest in December. It worked outdoor in the main kitchen garden. It worked perfectly well, but that was, I think, a very mild winter. So if you can protect it a while outside, I think that is the best, because when you move it into a polytunnel, you will have to be very careful so that it's not too damp. Today it's very damp outside too, but in a polytunnel it's even more damp, and that will damage the leaves because you will get this grey mold on the leaves. So try to keep it and eat it. Madame Dabedou, do you find slugs still in the garden even though it is this late in the season? And yes, I find slugs. I hate slugs, but I do have them all over the place in my garden. And yesterday during live stream, I think I found one in my polytunnel. So, but they are very slow now. I mean, they should be dead or resting, but I find them unfortunately. And there's another question about slugs. I can see if I can find it. Maybe I can answer that too. Yeah, that's it's from the same Dabadoo. And she writes again here, unfortunately, I have found some slugs in my new mulched raised beds this fall. I guess I will try some nematodes next spring. Will you give us some good advice and hope about the slugs in the garden tomorrow? I am not sure if I can give you any hope, but I think it could be inspiring for people to know that I have all kinds of slugs that people used to have in their gardens. I mean, I have the snails and I have the slugs. I don't know the English name for them, but I have like the brown large slugs and the black slugs and the one you call panther slugs and small slugs with houses and without houses. And they are, hello, Madame Dabadoo, I'm just answering your question about kinds of slugs, and I grow this garden as a mulched garden. And if you ask any experts in Sweden, they would say it's not possible to grow a mulched garden and do it when you have like slugs in your garden. It's not possible. And I know plenty of people doing it. And I had a couple of years ago when I found my first slug in the garden, I was a bit depressed. And then I turned to my sister for an interview. I published it on my Swedish blog, and I don't know, maybe we can translate it to English as well. But she said, I am sort of mulching my garden because I have slugs. Because every vegetable that I grow in my garden, they grow better in a mulched garden, where they have plenty of nutrition in the soil. And they have a lot of, it's not too dry in the soil, and they don't have to compete with weeds, etc., etc. So whenever, like one of the brassicas, a kale, for example, or a cabbage, when it is like damaged or hurt by a slug, it will recover quite easily. So I tried to think like her. So in my garden, for example, I would have slugs even though I didn't mulch my garden. So I try to live next to them and grow as many vegetables as possible. And also, Hannah, she said, and I think it's very funny, I grow one for the slug and one for me. So one can say that she grows and I grow more vegetables than we can actually eat. But that is to afford, in a way, to lose some of it for slugs. And I would like to repeat this, because I get this question every time that I am out talking about my garden. People ask me about slugs and about boars and about wild animals coming to the garden. And I repeat it. The four like animals, creatures doing the most damage to the garden, it's my lovely children. I mean, they could go out here with an axe and thinking that they will help me chopping something down. A couple of years ago, I had lovely Jerusalem artichokes just behind me. They were like 4 or 5 meters high. And one of the children came into me in the kitchen. He said, "Can we chop the sunflowers down using a big pair of scissors?" And I said, "Yeah, you do so." And then a few seconds later, I was just, I don't grow sunflowers. So I went out and they had cut all the Jerusalem artichokes down, and that was in late August, and they never grew back. And the artichokes were very, very small. So, well, it's I think I hate the slugs. But I can live with them. That's how I see it at the moment. Maria, do you need to add any amendments to your soil? I have realized I needed to add trace elements to mine as the plants were showing signs of being deficient. And actually, no, I have never put anything into my soil except the plant materials, the compost, the urine and the nettle waters that I told you about yesterday. And the truth is that when you are building a soil that is alive, you should not need to add anything except those things. And I would like to recommend you to read my blog post about mulching the garden and the soil analysis that I did. I will link that again in the description below. As I said to you yesterday, when compost waste directly on the surface of the ground. Oh, I actually thought it was going to rain, but it's one of those cows peeing. Sorry. Well, there's very important things that happens into the soil when you decompose things directly on it and not on a compost heap. So usually we think we are making good things to our soil while putting like a finished compost on it. But actually we should try to compost directly on the ground, because in the process very important things happen that will affect the soil in a very positive way. And if you do that, you will have all those things that you think you need to add in another way. So I will not say more about it. No, I don't put other things into the ground. I don't buy anything except the Bokashi things. I will get back to that later on. But read the blog post, please, and then get back to me with more questions. Inge asked me, does spinach have to be overwintered in a polytunnel? Will it grow or survive out in the open? I'm in Colorado, latitude 39. We can get down to 30 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. I have some spinach in a container outside, and I have done some research because I measure my temperature with Celsius, and I think 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit would be like 28 degrees negative minus Celsius. So it's very cold. It's very cold. And I think when you have spinach that overwinters outside in that kind of temperatures, it's more like you take a chance. And a lot of the things that I do in my gardening, I'm taking chances or risks all the time. I cannot count on or be sure that anything really survives. And this is a huge difference, I think, between my garden and a commercial garden, because in a commercial garden you can't take those risks. But for me, I see, as I said earlier this week as well, that it gives me a lot of, good, healthy things by being outside, while gardening also in wintertime, so I can afford to lose some spinach, for example. But if I keep spinach outside, I will try to do it in like a raised bed with a lid. Some kind of cover to protect it, not only from cold, because it's cold underneath that too, but you protect it from wind and from snow and from other things, wild animals, for example. So if you want to keep it in the ground outside, protect it as much as possible. And maybe you could try to dig up some plants, a few of them, and put them in a greenhouse if you have one. But otherwise, try to overwinter it, and then you will know for the next season what to do or what not to do. Kathy, I have watched very many of your videos, and forgive me if you have said and I did not hear. What is the ingredient that you put into your kitchen scrap to make the ferment for Bokashi? And how long does your bucket take to become compost-like to use in the garden beds? And well, I should of course have brought with me this bran that I use. But to make Bokashi compost, you need to start a fermentation, that a bucket that you keep with a lid indoors. So you put your kitchen waste in a bucket, and you put between every layer of compost, you put a wheat bran that is mixed with this special microorganisms, and you can read about it on internet. I don't have really there's a bokashiworld.org. I think I will put a link in the description as well, where you can read about it. So you have to add this specific microorganisms to the compost to start the fermentation. And it will keep then indoors for like 14 days. And after 14 days, it has prepared to decompose. But it will look pretty much the same as 14 days before. So it looks just the same, and you dig it down into your soil, and it will start the compost process, and it will turn to soil in just a few weeks, in a soil that is like warm enough so that the microorganisms will thrive. When it's cold, it will not decompose. It will sort of rest into the soil, and it will start to decompose whenever the soil is warm enough. So to do this bokashi, it's not the same like just putting your kitchen waste into a bucket and just leave it. You would have to add this in Swedish. I think it's the same in English. There are several videos on my channel about the bokashi compost, so you can check that out. Catherine, do you your own? And yes, I knit a lot. I was sitting yesterday and doing a pattern for this hat that I will share with my garden friends at my Swedish website. And I have like a premium content, so you could be a member for like 79 kronor, Swedish kronor, each month. And to thank all of you who are members and making it possible for me to actually live this way and to do my job, I will give you a pattern. We are discussing, me and my colleagues, how we should do this for you guys watching from other countries and only understanding English. And we do have like a web shop, and we have the possibility also to create this member content, premium content for you, but it costs a lot of money, and we are not sure yet if it's possible to do it and if people would like to be members, honestly. So I will have to get back to you on that. But I try to knit as often as possible. I don't have much time, but before I had children, I knitted so much. And yeah, I can try to get back to you about knitting too in a blog post maybe. It's such a nice thing to do. And actually, many of us gardening also are creative with knitting. So it brings us together as well. MEB and Benny ask about wool. How does wool work in the garden? Is it only a cover or mulch, or will it become soil? It will definitely become soil. It's an organic product. This is the first year that I try it myself in my garden. So I have not seen the result yet, but I have other garden friends who mulch with wool, and they say it takes about 1 to 2 years before it turns to soil. So, and it's very healthy and rich soil from wool as well, as far as I understand. So it will be nice to see that in my garden. Then Cynthia asked me, I wonder if you have heard of Semyon from the YouTube channel Swedish Homestead. He is a great guy and teaches a lot about sustainable farming and permaculture. And yes, Cynthia, I have seen a few videos from Semyon and Swedish Homestead. And I find it very inspiring, and he does great videos. Also, he has a video channel together with his children, I think. So it's a kind of different kind of life. I think when it comes to be inspiring and what things inspiring me the most, I am not that inspired by the off-grid living, because I am not living like that. I think what inspires me the most is to see like kitchen gardens like myself, and where people live and combining a vegetable garden with like life, with job and with family and relations and everything. I think that is the thing that we really need to discuss, is how to be able to garden without leaving job and like society, because this is the way most of us lives, and most of us want to keep our job and keep our relation and keep some kind of comfortable living as well, but we want to grow our own food. So I think, to me, it's very inspiring to follow other gardens that makes it possible. I run a few Facebook groups in Swedish, and I get so much inspiration from that. Also, when I read about other people's like questions, and they struggle with things and they don't know how to manage when kids are sick, or when this and that happens, and you know, people in your family just don't want the same things with your garden, and how to deal with that. I think that's very important questions to me. So I have seen the videos. I enjoy them very much, but they are not my like biggest inspiration. Susan asked me when it comes to mulching my garden, and to mulch with like garden waste, like other vegetables that are not that fresh that I cannot eat? Do you split big vegetables like cabbages and Swedes, or do you use them as mulch even if they are big? I have never even thought about that, actually. And I think when just leaving vegetables, like a cabbage behind me, for example, if it's rotten, I think I'll just leave it on the ground, and it will only pass a few weeks, and then it's too rotten and it's flat. So I don't do much with them, actually. I pretty much leave them. And in this example, I'm going to grow tomatoes next year. So what I'll do is I simply leave the vegetables and the waste into the ground, and I'll cover it with more grass clippings or I got the yesterday by some nice viewer, and ensilage, and I just cover the beds, and it's very practical, because when you cover the beds, let's say with wool or with the ensilage or with hay or leaves or whatever, you don't see what's underneath, so everything looks so beautiful. And it's beautiful for the worms too underneath. So no, I don't think I split them. Maybe I should have done that, or I did it maybe when I was like starting this garden, but now I'm too lazy, and I think the result is pretty much the same, so I don't bother. Eva Madeleine asked me about this onion that I mentioned the other day, potatislök. It's like, translated to English, it would be like potato onion. And she asked, does potato onion have a taste of potato and onion? And no, it's not about the taste, I think. It's more of the form about the onion. But I don't know exactly why it's called potato onion. I think I have read about it in some web page for like traditional and old vegetables in Sweden, but I can't remember it. The thing with potato onion is that it grows like a shallot, so you put one onion into the ground and you can harvest like 6 or 8. They are actually quite big, and with potato onion it's amazing because you can store them very, very long. So you can keep them and eat them until next summer and even longer. So that is very good for us, for most of us. So it's a really nice vegetable, and you know that it's very easy to store just onions. You keep them just inside the house. You don't have to keep them in a cold place or something. I have mine under my sofa in the living room, for example. An interesting question now from Marianne Fargo, Sweden, and I'll read her whole comment. I don't know if you're watching, Marianne, but here it is. I have noticed that I made kind of a big mistake in my winter garden this year. I didn't sow enough veggies in time. I waited too long, or with other words, I didn't have the time or energy earlier. Hello, Marianne. I have all your books, but still wonder in which months should I do most of my sowings to have things, for example, pak choi and lamb's lettuce, ready to harvest standing in my polytunnel in July and August. September was apparently too late. They are growing, but nowhere near harvest size. And I was a bit embarrassed, thinking, right, I wrote 3 books, but I didn't manage to get this information right. Fuck. Anyhow, I think you are right here. July and August are good months for me to sow vegetables like leafy greens, for them to become ready to harvest in fall. So but I keep sowing, and that's the point too. I make most of the sowings in like July and August. August, I think, most, and in September too. And October and November, but the late sowings are more or less for like spring harvest. So lamb's lettuce and some of the kale varieties and miner's lettuce and even parsley I sowed in July. I do in summertime, and that's why I keep saying that those I think you call it plug trays, because at that time in summer, there's no place for me to sow things in my kitchen garden, not in the open or in the polytunnels, basically. So that's why I have to make sowings in other places. Yes, Marianne, I'm sowing as much as I can now. I know, I sow much. I'm just the same. I'm looking at my plants at the moment thinking, it will not be enough. So I'll make plenty of new sowings. And I know how this will be, because in like April, we will drown in lamb's lettuce. And I will stand there thinking, what will I do with them? And I will start to give away. But in a way, it makes me feel satisfied. So then it's okay. But for us living in Sweden, I think July and August, really good times to make plenty of sowings, and then to use like plug trays where things can keep until there's enough room to plant in polytunnels. And I know, Marianne, you have polytunnel too, quite a large one, I remember. So I think if you use it in a good way, you will be able to harvest so many things. And you actually have two gardens as well, because you have this a plot, can't remember the name of it, and your own garden. So I hope I will get to see it soon. Now I'll leave your question, and I will go back to a question from Cynthia again. And she asked me, have you read Eliot Coleman's books? He is in Maine, USA, and he writes about growing in winter in polytunnels. And you know, Eliot Coleman, right? When I started to grow my garden, I didn't have I didn't have time to get inspiration from other gardens, from other gardeners. I had one. It's my Bible, and that is Lena Israelsson. She's a very famous and very known Swedish gardener. She writes wonderful books. And I think many of us who start to garden in Sweden, we have her books. So I read it. But I didn't have time to go to other gardens or to really read other books. So when I had been gardening for a few years, people started to say, and I checked videos at YouTube, for example, and they say, "Oh, we are reading lots about Eliot Coleman, and have you read Eliot Coleman, because you do pretty much the same?" And no, I haven't read him, but now I have seen so many videos where people are talking about Eliot Coleman. So I think in Tuesday I actually bought a book about Eliot Coleman. So this winter I'm going to read him, and it will be very exciting, I think. So I will have to get back to you about what I thought about it. All right, and then there's the last question. City Homestead asked me, do you put the grass on as mulch while it's still green, or do you dry it first? Right, and I do both. I do during summer when we cut our own, or do you say move your lawn? Anyhow, we can collect the grass clippings from our machine. We have a very small machine, and there's actually, honestly, not much of the lawn left because I have grown. I increase the garden all the time. But the little thing that I get, I put on fresh as a fresh mulch. And I also collect, but Barbara says, mow. Do you say mow the lawn? I don't get it. Mow or move? I'm learning. Anyhow, we have neighbors living that direction, and they have a huge garden, many trees and a big lawn. And they have this, it looks like a small tractor, and they, with this thing on the back where they can actually collect all the grass clippings. So they mow their lawn several times each year, because they are very, they care for their lawn. The first way, not like move, mow. Thank you, Marianne. And they are very careful, but they want to collect the grass clippings. They think it looks not in order to leave it on the ground. And so they collect it and they put it on a big pile And each time they empty this machine, it's 750 liters of grass clippings. And each time they mow their lawn, they will get like 10 750 liters. So that will give me like 10, really big sacks of grass clippings. So I go there with the children, I put them in the car and we go for a walk with the dog, and I carry those sacks with me and I fill them, and then I go back later on to collect them with the car. So the children, they live in the forest, so the children can actually go there and they're playing and looking at things. So it's a bit of an adventure for us. But then most of the time when I get back with these grass clippings, I don't have time to mulch the garden directly. And that's because why I have 4 children, because I immediately have to go with someone to the bathroom, or I have to make food or whatever. And that's why I keep saying, oh no, my microphone. Sorry. Thank you for saying. I noticed in another way that in another video that it was very... Is it better now? Oh, I noticed in another video that that microphone seemed to jump out of its... No one is commenting. I will try to... I hope it's better now. Now it's fine. Thank you, Barbara. And this is why I think it's more important for us in a way to... it's not more important. It is important to discuss how to manage a garden and how to find ways to garden, even though you are the mother of 4 children, for example, and you grow this garden and you do have a job. This leads me to another discussion, really, but it's a nice this week, and I think that it's actually quite close to what Marianne writes in her comment. I will repeat it. She said, I waited too long, or with other words, I didn't have time or energy earlier. And that's the thing for most of us. I mean, we read a book and we say, yeah, that's how it is. And that we know exactly how to do it. And I know exactly when I have to sow things to get and harvest later on the same season. I know exactly how I should transplant my plants and do this and that. But when it comes to it, I am sick. Or I have argued with my husband feeling sorry, or I have to go to the doctor or the dentist, or I have to take care of the laundry, or the water ran out, everything like that. And so for me it's this discussion, and to get inspiration and to have this discussion with you. And it's not like having a discussion all the time either, and to tell each other what to do. But it's like if I say I am having a really bad day, I was going to do this but I couldn't find the energy, and someone else says to me, I know how that's like, but you know, there will be a new day tomorrow, or there will be a new spring or whatever. I mean, it gives me confidence and it gives me strength, and it makes me feel like a better gardener. And that's also why I sometimes get questions about like schedules and schemes for sowing, etc. And I have that in my book, but I don't follow them myself in that way, simply because it makes me feel... It makes me feel sad in a way each time I look at it, and I check at one point, all right, I didn't do that. Next one, I didn't do that. Next one, I didn't do that. And I can't seem to find time to do anything in time. So it's more important for me to garden my garden in very small steps. And I have this rule for myself that I want to do one thing for my garden each day. And it's not only for my garden, it's also for myself to manage this. And I sometimes say when I'm talking or meeting other people, it's very good for us, you know, having small children, etc., etc. And when my mother comes to listen, she always says to me, you cannot say that it's only for like parents. And for people having small children, I am older now, and I cannot do things like I did before. So this thought, doing one small thing each day is good even for me, she says. And I have to remember that too, because my kids are growing up. So when it comes to back to the mulching with the grass clippings, I collect it in sacks, and I use it afterwards too. And the nutrition in the, thank you, Molly, you give me strength, and it's the same. I mean, when I go out, and we get together and we give each other a big hug, saying thank you and thank you and thank you and thank you. I actually met a woman in Gothenburg when we had a release party for my third book. She came to me, and her husband was, I can't remember her name. She was standing in front of me, and she said, it's so nice to actually meet you, because you are with me every day in my garden. All right, I says, I don't know what to come. And she says to me, you saved my life. If I didn't have you as a company, I would not be here. And she starts to cry, and I start to cry. And then I checked at her husband, and he cried. And he knew exactly, I don't know what she went through, but I was with her. And the same way you are with me all the time in the garden. And my family, my husband, he's not interested in gardening, but we are like a big community. And that's also why I try to push people, saying that you should share your garden. Marianne, for example, I would like to see your garden in your YouTube channel. And I know sometimes you just can't find the energy, but it's so important to show real gardens. I mean, real home gardens as it is, with all the struggle and all the love. Back now for the third time to the grass clippings. You could say that grass clippings, they keep its nutritions for years and years after it's been cutting. So it's not a bad thing to keep it and to use it like next season, for example. One used to say that like the material I use for mulch, if it's green and colorful, it consists of many. It's a good like fertilization. It's a lot of nutritions in it. If it like dark and brown, like leaves, for example, or almost like decomposing material, it's not so many nutritions right now. But I mean, you could actually mulch your garden as I do now in the fall, because it will give the soil other things than the nutritions. It will need structure, for example, and that thing you will get by mulching with leaves. And there are plenty of leaves that we can collect actually in the garden, so just do it. So I do both with fresh grass clippings and also with old grass clippings. I don't know if I have translated that blog post for you, but I do have a blog post in how I, hi, my neighbor is coming walking with her dogs. I have a blog post in how I keep the grass clippings in sacks for a long time, and that's basically I do like my own ensilage by keeping it in sacks with no air. I will try to find that blog post for you and translate it later on. My friends, it is time now. I could sit here all day long talking, really, but I am getting a bit in a hurry, and I have to go get my friend Lottie, who is going to join me for today's talk in Falkenberg, Köinge. That's where I am going. It's about 2.5 hours from here, and we are going to talk about winter gardening, and I will bring my book and I will bring my seeds. I have my own seeds collection for winter gardening. It's so amazing. I can't believe I do this, actually. It's so fun. I would like to send you all a great hug for following me this week. A huge thank you. I will not be able to do many live streams later on, because it's very difficult to do live streams when it's cold. The battery gets exhausted in just like no time. But I hope that you will follow me through the blogs, sarabäckmo.com and sarabäckmo.se, and also at YouTube, of course. Thank you all for this weekend, and I hope you have a lovely day in your garden, wherever it is. Mwah! Bye.